On the 11th day of the lie, Kolad Adeyemi found an envelope under the door of room 7 at the Delano Guest House on Abeka Road at 6:14 in the morning. He had been awake since 5:47. He knew that time exactly because it was the time Adeze left for work, and he had been watching the street from the small window above the bed, tracking whether she had passed below or taken the other route. He had not seen her. He had gone back to the mattress, a thin one with a plastic cover that made noise every time he shifted, and he had been lying there with his father's Casio pressed flat against his chest when he heard the sound of the envelope sliding across the tile floor. He knew before he opened it that it smelled like her hands, shea butter and something faintly like laundry starch. He stood in the doorway in the half-light for a long moment holding it. Inside were 4 100 city notes, folded precisely in thirds. No message, just the money folded the way a teacher folds things with deliberate, neat corners. The kind of fold that comes from years of handling papers that had to look right before the children saw them. He counted the notes twice, standing in the doorway. He had set this experiment in motion himself. He had rented this room. He had told this story. He had held this performance together for 11 days. The money in his hand should not have changed anything. He stood there without moving for a long time. The decision to test her had not come to him alone. For that, he should have been more careful about who he ate lunch with. Kolade Ndukwe Adeyemi was 38 years old, 6 feet 1, and 96 kilograms, more than he had weighed 2 years earlier, before Adeyemi started cooking for him on Sunday evenings. He had built Adeyemi Bright Logistics from a single 2005 Mitsubishi Canter truck with 411,000 kilometers on the dashboard and a cracked side mirror he had secured with packing tape, to a fleet of 22 vehicles operating across the greater Accra and Ashanti regions by January 2023. He had done this in 9 years, out of a rented office on Spintex Road that cost him 1,200 GHS a month in the beginning, checking manifests by phone light in the evenings, because the power in that building cut off at 9 o'clock every night, and he refused to stop working. He wore a Casio watch, silver, the MTP V01 model, that had belonged to his father until 2009, when his father stopped needing it. The watch ran 90 seconds fast. Kolade had never corrected it because his father had never corrected it either, and he saw no reason to begin now. He drove a 2019 Land Cruiser Prado in deep gray and parked it on Mensa Bonsu Lane, 3 blocks from Adeye's building. On the evenings he went to see her. He had started doing this 7 months into their relationship, when he began to understand how much he wanted things to stay the same between them, for her to look at him the way she had looked at him at the beginning, before the size of his account had the chance to change anything. He had met Adeze Duke at a funeral, not dramatically, at the food table, in a quiet argument with a caterer about whether jollof rice should ever be served without fried plantain. She was 29 then, slender, with 2 flat braids and the particular stillness of someone who had already thought through most situations before they arrived. She smelled of shea butter and something faintly like chalk dust. She taught Primary 4 at Bright Stars Academy on Liberation Road and took 2 trotros to get there every morning by 5:47 a.m. She earned 800 GHS per month and divided it, on the last Friday of envelopes, she kept in the top drawer of her dresser. Rent, transport, food, savings, family. He had seen those envelopes once and asked about them. She had shrugged and said, "My mother taught me. A person who doesn't know where their money is going is standing on wet ground." She wore simple wrap blouses she bought at Macola Market for 15 to 20 GHs each, and carried a green water bottle with a cap that leaked slightly at the seal, which she had owned for 2 years and would not replace because it still held water. She had a small wooden box, 8 inches by 5, with a brass latch, that sat on the windowsill above her kitchen sink. He had seen it every time he visited her apartment. He had never looked inside it. She had never explained it. He told himself it was personal. He told himself it was not his business. Her one particular dignity. She ironed her school uniform every Sunday night before the week began. She did it slowly, with an iron that stuck on the left side, pulling each sleeve perfectly flat and pressing it twice before moving to the next. She did it the way her grandmother had taught her, one piece at a time, as though the cloth had feelings and required care. She was never in a hurry when she ironed. She wanted a small life, not small in ambition, small in disturbance. She wanted to leave for work before the traffic thickened. She wanted to cook twice a week and read on the others. She wanted to visit her mother in Kumasi every 3 months. She wanted, eventually, a child. She had said this once, not as a demand, but as a fact about herself she was handing him. The way you hand someone your full name when you finally meet them properly. He had held it carefully. He had been seated across from his business partner Emmanuel Okafor at a restaurant in East Legon at 1:17 p.m. on a Thursday in September when he told him he was thinking of proposing. Emmanuel had set down his fork. Emmanuel Okafor had been Collade's partner for 6 of the 9 years it took to build the company. He was 41, drove a Range Rover Velar, and had been married and divorced twice before the age of 37. He was not a cruel man. He was a careful one, the kind of careful that belongs to people who have lost things they did not expect to lose and rebuilt themselves around not losing again. "Do you know who she is when there is no money?" Emmanuel asked. He said this without drama, as though it were a logistical question, the same way he asked whether a truck route had been checked for road conditions. His voice carried no malice, only a specific weight. He had a colleague, Dubum, who had been with a woman for 4 years and lost his import business in 2020 and watched her board a flight to London within 90 days of the seizure notice. He had another friend, Tabena, whose wife had stayed through the hardship, only until the insurance paid out and the house was rebuilt, at which point she told him she had found herself during the difficulty and needed to explore that. Emmanuel had witnessed both of these things happen and had drawn conclusions from them the way a man draws conclusions from a pattern, with absolute confidence and no curiosity about the exceptions. "Give it 6 weeks, Emmanuel said. "You'll see the real her." The other people at the restaurant did not turn to look at them. The waiter brought fresh bread and went away. A group of businessmen 3 tables over were laughing at something that had happened in a meeting. Nobody in that room was watching 2 men decide to stage a financial collapse in the life of a woman who had done nothing wrong. Nobody was watching the world right then get a little smaller and a little meaner for no reason she had caused. 6 weeks, Emmanuel said again. "That is all it takes," he told her on a Monday. He had rehearsed it, but not carefully enough. He sat across from her in her apartment on Tema Road and told her the business was in serious trouble, that 3 of the company's largest contracts had been pulled in September, that the trucks were being recalled by the financing company, and that he was working with a lawyer, but the situation was deteriorating. He told her he might need to leave his apartment by the end of the month. She put her fork down. Not quickly. She placed it down slowly and precisely, and looked at him with an expression that had no easy name. Then she asked, "Are you sick? Are you eating? Are you sleeping?" "Not." "What does this mean for us?" "Not about the future, not." "What about the ring you mentioned in August? Are you eating?" He told her he was fine, that it was the business, not him. She nodded and picked her fork back up and said, "Tell me what happened." He told her the story he and Emmanuel had prepared. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "What do you need right now?" He told her he just needed time. She said, "Okay." He rented room 7 at the Delano Guest House on Abeka Road the following morning for 800 GHS a month. He moved 3 bags of clothes in over 2 days and began spending Tuesday and Thursday evenings there where she could find him, so she would believe he had left his apartment for something cheaper. He kept the Land Cruiser on Mensa Bonsu Lane, where he always kept it, and told himself he was being thorough. She arrived the first Tuesday at 6:38 p.m. with a bag, groundnut soup with goat meat, Benelli bread, a small container of pineapple pieces. She wiped down the small table with a cloth she had brought herself. The guest house did not supply cloths of that quality. She opened the single window above the table to clear the smell of the shared bathroom down the corridor. She said very little. She ate with him and then packed the empty containers and left at 8:11 p.m. to catch the last trotro home before 9. By the 4th day, his hands had begun to feel like they belonged to someone he was watching from a distance. He called Emmanuel at 10:30 that night and said he was thinking of ending it. Emmanuel said, "You are 9 days from knowing the truth. You have already paid for the room." The rain that came on the 6th day hit the pavement on Abeka Road like gravel dropped from a height. It was the kind of rain that turned the gutter outside the guest house entrance into a fast brown river within 10 minutes and made the street smell of wet concrete and kerosene from a generator running 3 buildings down. The mattress in room 7 had the plastic cover that crumpled every time he shifted his weight. The fluorescent light in the hallway blinked twice every time the front door opened and shook on its frame. He lay in that room at 2:17 a.m., listening to the rain diminish to a drizzle, and then to the quiet tap of individual drops falling from the roof gutter, and he tried to remember the last time he had been genuinely uncomfortable and what he had done about it. He could not remember doing anything other than working harder until the discomfort passed. On the sixth evening, Adayz arrived at 6:44 p.m. with rice and Contemeyer stew and 2 small bottles of Malta. While she was unpacking the food, he watched her glance at her phone with the sideways look she used when checking her bank balance. He had learned this look over 21 months of close observation. She put the phone face down on the table without a word. Then she went to the corner of the room where he had left a pile of shirts and started folding them without being asked. The woman who ran the Kenki and fish cart outside the guest house entrance. Her name was Willa. She had been setting up that cart on that corner for 7 years. Every morning at 5 and every evening until 9, gave him a free bowl. That sixth evening, when he came downstairs at 7:30 p.m., she said, "You look like you have been thinking too hard." She put extra pepper on top and handed it back before he could offer money. He sat on the step outside and ate it in the slowing rain. He did not feel like a man who was in the middle of conducting an experiment. He felt like a man who had done something he could not yet name. On the sixth evening, before she left, he noticed Adayz check her phone once more and put it face down quickly. When he looked over, he saw the contact name at the top of the screen for half a second, Ma Comfort. He assumed it was a colleague from school. He forgot about it before morning. On the 8th day, she offered him money. She said it the way she said things she had thought carefully about. Quietly, while doing something else, in this case pulling the stems off a bag of spinach she had brought, she said, "I have some savings. I want you to know that it is there, if you need it." She asked him how much he needed to stabilize things. He said he was not sure yet. She said, "I have 12,000. I would give you 8 if you needed it. The other 4 is a floor I cannot remove." She said this without looking at him. "I know it is not much compared to what you are dealing with, but it is yours if you need it." He understood what 8 GHS was to a woman who earned 2,800 GHS a month and divided it into 5 envelopes. He understood it represented 11 months of careful. He understood the 4,000 she was keeping was not selfishness. It was survival architecture. He understood all of this, and he said nothing about it. He almost told her the truth that night. He picked up his phone. He had Emmanuel's number on the screen. He put the phone back down. Then, on the evening of the 10th day, he heard her on the phone. He had come back upstairs from the shared bathroom. The water ran cold from the rooftop tank, and the tiles were never fully dry, and she had not heard him return. He caught fragments through the door she had left slightly open. The call was not loud. He made out, "I know he doesn't know yet," and then something lower he missed, and then clearly by the end of the month. Then, "Don't say anything until I talk to him." He stood in the corridor for 14 seconds. The fluorescent light blinked twice. He had built this test to discover whether she was the person he believed her to be. He was now standing in a hallway, convinced she had been performing in response to his performance, that she had known everything from the beginning, that every bowl of groundnut soup and folded shirt and whispered offer of 8,000 GHS had been theater staged in answer to his own theater. He went back into the room at 8:04 p.m. and sat on the edge of the bed and said nothing. The plastic mattress cover sounded under his weight. Adayz poured him a glass of cold water from the bottle she had brought and set it on the table beside him. She put her hand briefly on his arm. "It is going to get better," she said. He nodded. He did not trust his voice. He found the envelope at 6:14 the following morning. 400 setas, folded in thirds. He pulled on his shoes and went down to the front desk. The woman who managed the desk was named Evelyn. She was 54 years old and had worked at the Delano Guest House for 19 years. She had the particular quality of people who spent 2 decades watching strangers arrive and leave through the same door. She noticed everything and expressed nothing. She looked at the envelope in his hand and then at him. She told him a young woman had paid for his room, in cash, 2 months forward. 600 GHS, delivered on a Tuesday at noon, 3 days into his stay. The woman had asked Evelyn to say nothing unless the man in room 7 asked directly. She had said it was for her fiancé. She had said she did not want him to know. He asked if there was anything else. Evelyn reached below the counter and placed a folded piece of paper between them. without further comment. She had held it for 8 days. He unfolded it. Adiezi's handwritings, small, careful letters, the particular precision of a person who has spent years writing things legibly enough for children to read. It said, Ma Comfort says you used to park your Land Cruiser on Mensabonsu Lane before you walk to my building. She says she hasn't seen it in 11 days. But your shoes are too clean for a man who takes Trotros. He read it twice. He thought about the contact name he had seen on her phone for half a second 6 days ago and dismissed. Ma Comfort sold plantain chips from a wooden tray on the corner of Tima Road, 20 meters from the entrance to Adiezi's building. He had passed her every single evening he had ever visited. He had not known her name. He had not known she had been watching his shoes. If this story is hitting you the way I think it is, stay with me, because what Adiezi wrote at the bottom of that note is something that changes everything about what the previous 11 days meant. Below the sentence about his shoes, in smaller letters, as though she had added it after sitting still for a while, was this: I knew. I stayed anyway, not for you, for me, because I will not be a woman who runs when things get hard. I've watched too many people do that. I won't be one of them. She knocked on the door of room 7 at 6:32 that evening. One knock. He opened it. She stood in the corridor with her school bag still over her shoulder, the green water bottle clipped to the outside. She looked at him, not with anger, not with tears. She was completely still in the way she was still when she had already decided something. Can I come in? She said. He stepped back. She came in and sat in the chair by the window without removing her bag. He sat on the edge of the bed. The plastic cover made it sound. She told him what she knew and when she had known it. Ma Comfort had called her on day 1 around 4 p.m. to say she had not seen the Land Cruiser on Mensabonsu Lane in 2 days, and the man who drove it had just walked past in shoes without a single scuff mark. Ma Comfort watched that street the way it needed to be watched, and she did not miss things that were out of order. He asked her why she had not said anything. She was quiet for a moment, because it didn't matter. I'm not here to pass tests. I'm here because I want to be here. She looked at him directly. When I told you I would give you 8,000 setas, I meant it, whether you needed it or not. He asked about the phone call he had heard through the door. She told him it was Ma Comfort. She had been trying to decide whether to say something to him, and Ma Comfort had been telling her to wait until she was sure of what she wanted to say. He asked what she had decided to say. She reached into her school bag and took out the small wooden box with the brass latch. He had not seen her pick it up when she left her apartment. He had not realized she had brought it. She placed it on the table between them and opened it. Inside, organized by date, were receipts. Every purchase made during the 11 days. The groundnut soup and barley bread from day 5 GHS. The Malta and Kantamayor rice from day 6 47 GHS. The spinach and provisions from day 8. The Delano Guest House prepayment receipt, 15,600 GHS. 4 Trotro Fair receipts, 16 GHS total. And at the bottom in her handwriting, total, 1,786 GHS. I keep track of everything, she said, not to hold it over anyone, because where I come from, money was real. You counted it because you had to. My mother counted it. Her mother counted it. You count what matters. He looked at the receipts. He thought about the 5 envelopes in her dresser. He thought about the 11 months of careful she had been willing to hand him without a condition attached. He thought about his father's Casio running 90 seconds fast on his wrist, and whether the things he had inherited from the men in his life had all been as useful as he had assumed. She closed the box. She latched it. She looked at him for a moment before she spoke. I don't want to be with a man who is afraid to be honest with me. I know, he said. That was the full extent of the reckoning between them. She did not raise her voice. She did not require him to explain himself at length, or to list his reasons in order of worst to least. She said the true thing in one sentence and let it stand. He called Emmanuel at 7:14 p.m. from the chair she had been sitting in after she went downstairs to wait. Emmanuel picked up on the second ring. Yes, Liz said, a pause. And? Did she pass? No. Collade said, I failed. She was already the person I needed her to be. The test showed nothing except that I didn't trust my own eyes. There was silence on the line. Emmanuel said, You are being hard on yourself. Collade said nothing to that. Some silences are the correct response. He transferred 15,600 GHS to her account at 7:38 p.m. that night. In the note field he wrote, The room was mine to pay for. Thank you. Then he told her everything. He told her the date the conversation with Emmanuel happened. He told her the name of the restaurant in East Legon. He told her the story about Dubam and the 90-day flight and Tobena and the insurance payout. And he told her which of those stories had stayed in his chest and become something he breathed in without knowing it. He told her all of it without leaving out the parts that reflected badly on him, which was most of it. She listened the way she listened to things she had already thought through. When he finished, she asked one question. "Was it Emmanuel's idea or yours?" He said, "His idea, my choice to agree." She nodded. She said, "I think Emmanuel is very afraid of something." She did not say it as a judgment. She said it the way she said things that were simply true. That is a sad way to live. Then she picked up her green water bottle and drank from it, the cap at its familiar slight angle, leaking its small drop onto her wrist the way it always did. 3 weeks later, on a Sunday morning at 7:03 a.m., 3 minutes after his weekly call to his mother in Tema, he proposed to her in the kitchen of the apartment on Tema Road. While she was making tea, he had not planned the exact moment, only the question. She heard the question and went completely still. She set the mug down on the counter. She turned around. He had spoken to his mother that morning the way he always did every Sunday, at exactly 7 a.m. This time, before he had said anything about what he was planning to do, his mother had said to him, "That girl called me on the third day of whatever you were doing." He had asked what Adaze had said. His mother said, "She asked if you were really okay. Not about the business. About you. Whether you were sleeping. Whether you were eating." His mother had gone quiet for a moment. Then she said, "She called you first. Then she called me. My son, that is your answer. Right there." Kool-Aid built a test because he was afraid. He gave it 11 days and a rented room and a story he had to maintain every time Adaze came through the door with food he had not asked for. He gave it 800 GHS a month and the crumpling sound of a plastic mattress cover and a fluorescent light that blinked in a hallway that smelled of shared bathroom tiles and whatever people carry through a guest house door at 2 in the morning. What he had actually been trying to test was not Adaze. He had been trying to examine his own judgment, his own capacity to believe what his own eyes were showing him every day he spent with her. He did not need a test. He needed only to trust what he had already seen: the 5 envelopes, the iron that stuck on the left side, the water bottle with the leaking cap she would not replace because it still held water, the small wooden box open on a table in room 7, with every receipt inside it organized by date. She passed on day 1. She had been passing since the afternoon at a funeral when she argued, quietly and correctly, about fried plantain. When you love someone and you are afraid, the fear has a name. It is not distrust of the other person. It is distrust of your own ability to see clearly. You build experiments to give yourself permission to believe what you have already seen. But a person's character is not revealed when the money runs out. It is already visible in the receipts kept in a wooden box with a brass latch. It is already present in the phone call made to a stranger's mother on day 3, not to report anything, simply to ask if he was eating. It is visible in the fold of 4 notes, precise as a lesson plan, placed under a door at 6:14 in the morning. You do not need a test. You need to look at what someone does when no one told them to do it. When there is no audience and no outcome they are managing. Look at what they do in the small hours of an ordinary Tuesday. That is who they are. That is who they have always been. She is still teaching Primary 4 at Bright Stars Academy on Liberation Road. Still taking 2 Trotros. The green water bottle still leaks at the cap. She has still not replaced it. On Sunday evenings she irons her uniform for the week ahead, slowly, carefully, pulling each sleeve flat and pressing it twice before moving to the next, with the iron that catches on the left side. She does not do it quickly. She does not do it for anyone. She has done it this way since before he arrived, and she does it now with the same particular, unhurried care, as though the cloth is the only thing in the room and it deserves her full attention. That is who she was. That is who she is. The test proved nothing. The woman proved everything. If someone came to you tomorrow with nothing, no plan, no title, no safety net, just themselves standing in front of you asking you to stay, would you stay because you love them, or would you stay to see how it turned out for you? Think carefully. The answer tells you more about who you are than it tells you about them. Leave your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to read it. Subscribe for more stories about hidden strength, quiet power, and the people the world overlooks until they change everything. I'll see you in the next one.